there's a lot of different ideas on carbon tax. One thing everybody might not know is the province had the ability to fight the carbon tax, which we didn't do. In terms of energy production, Nova Scotia, we produce 40% of our energy green. The average in the country is 18%. Based on that alone, we should be taxed less anyhow. So I would say that, one, I guess, if you want to change anything, you have to have control over it. So the thing would be to fight the carbon tax, but not add it provincially, just fight the carbon tax. Because if we do a better job producing energy better, what's the necessity of a carbon tax? Because if the goal is to actually change what you're doing, just change what you're doing. And then you don't have to worry about it.
My colleague, Mr. CC, because that's what I call you, said that we should have been taxing big companies. And that, yes, it's true that the carbon tax, I don't like the carbon tax. I don't think there's anybody here in this room that likes the carbon tax. And yes, it was Mr. Trudeau that put the carbon tax on. And I'm a liberal. But that's federal. And this is a provincial province. Yes. And we have a provincial government that could have made an arrangement with the Liberal government federally so that we didn't have to have the brunt of that tax. When you said earlier, Christine, that Canada had carbon tax, so other people had carbon tax, but to what degree was their tax? We are taxed high. From 2017 to 2020, we were raising gas on an average of about 1 cent per year. Yes, the gas prices were going up, 7 cents sometimes, coming back down 3 cents, and coming down again, then going up, then coming down. But on an average, it was 1 cent per year until the carbon tax came in, which is now 14 cents. It's a 14 cent increase. With the McNeil government, yes, they did have a plan which was the cap and trade, where big businesses were being taxed on pollution, and we were not getting taxed at the pumps like it is right now. I believe that the Houston government could have made a deal with the federal government, but rather he just dealt with other things and let the carbon tax come and hit us, and now we're hit with a 14-cent carbon tax. It didn't have to be. I don't like the idea that it's a carbon tax. I don't like the idea that Justin Trudeau put that carbon tax on, but it's here. We have it. And as a Liberal candidate, if we are elected, we would definitely fight to have that carbon tax scrapped. And not more taxes. Not for us, but for the big companies. Somebody said that the cap and trade that was in place was not going to sustain us long term, was not going to continue to work. But it could have been reworked. We could have changed something to make it work. It could have worked so that we didn't have to be paying that extra money at the tank. Now, some people work from home, and that's great. But in my business, unfortunately, I don't get to work from home because people have demands, and where there's supply and demand, we go and do business. I run an asphalt paving company. We have diesel dump trucks, diesel backhoes, diesel machinery. And every time I go to the gas station, I can't put in $70 worth of fuel in one of my vehicles, even in my truck, gives me like about maybe a little more than a quarter tank. Where most people in a car can fill up their vehicle for about $75, $80. In a tandem dump truck, you better come with like at least around about $300-400 for one tank if you have 2 tanks. So the carbon tax affects people that are working in construction, people that are not working at home. Now, I fight and I advocate, and I definitely would advocate for folks that would like to have that opportunity to work from home, because it definitely lowers the emission in general. Because there's going to be less cars on the road, there's going to be less pollution, and people have even time to spend with their family, and sometimes even work better from home because they have their all senses right there with them. I would fight. to have that carbon tax scrapped if we are elected in.
Thank you. Thank you. With regards to the carbon tax, just a few statistics. Canada as a country on the world spectrum only produces 0.3% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. It was recognized by the Trudeau government that Nova Scotia, given their plan, was meeting all of the targets, and in some cases, exceeding the targets. Yet, they still put on the carbon tax. They said that our plan, the plan for the PC government, was not good enough. But I quote this from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. It says that clear evidence showed that that Nova Scotia could reduce emissions without taking themselves into misery with this carbon tax. Given Nova Scotia's track record for reducing emissions without taxing taxpayers to the cleaners, or taking taxpayers to the cleaners at the gas pump, Ottawa should have been looking for advice, not punishing Nova Scotia. This was written by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. With regards to working from home, well, right now I know that the federal government, and I don't know if there's anybody here that's working with the federal government, they have implemented a plan for work at home already from the federal government. Unfortunately, the downsides of doing all of this has created a downtown core that is nearly empty. I was watching the news and it showed the downtown core of Toronto before COVID-19 and after. As a result of this work from home, which I don't have a problem with and I agree with, it has forced a number of businesses to close. So it does have an impact on the economy. So how do we come to some type of solution that doesn't have this impact? Because there are a lot of vacant office space downtown, and not only that, there are a lot of vacant businesses, restaurants, and these places which rely on those people who are working in those buildings. So working from home, I agree with it, but we also have to realize there's also a cost to that. How do we look at balancing that? And with regards to the carbon tax, our Premier, Tim Houston, continues to fight that tooth and nail with the carbon tax. And I think we all agree here, we don't want anything to do with that tax. But it was imposed upon us by the federal government. I also learned today, just to give you a little bit of information, if I may. Remember how they said that you were going to get sort of a rebate? Well, did you know something? That this rebate, if your income is at a certain threshold, you do not get the rebate. You get what they call a tax credit. So be aware of that. That's all I have to say. I think that that's something collectively as Nova Scotians, irrespective of the party we represent, we need to come together and fight this together.
What is that income? What is that? What is the income level?
I'm not sure what the income threshold is.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no.
That's okay. So it's time for questions.